Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite provides you with all the resources you need to become a successful author. You can learn more about Authors Unite and join the free community at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today, I have Alex Spaete with us. He's the Director of Finance and Analytics for Mir Medical Group. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you on, man. We'll dive in. The first question I have for you, Alex, is what is the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
I think for me, the story that really stands out the most was when I was younger. I think about 13, 14. I was going through a lot of family stuff and just I was in a really I was a rut, I would say. I was acting out. I was doing all kinds of, things I would not maybe be happy to that I was doing. I wasn't really happy with the person that I was. And one of my family members had pulled me aside and at one point kind of talked to me and was, really, really stressed that, I know you feel like you're kind of stuck in this and that, like, this is your life. You can't get out of this, but you don't realize it now. But education is your best way, to kind of better and further yourself. And that really stuck with me. And it kind of became at the time like a really big turning point for me to really focus more on school and then actually, care about going to college. And so I'd say, to me, and it's something that I've now really, I kind of have held on to that for as long, and it really, to me, is in a lot of things I do, it's really now just important to, continue to learn and grow. And I think it's incredibly important.
And what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
Being in healthcare, I think the biggest thing is that change and consolidation are really becoming the new normal. And if you're adverse to that or scared of that, I think you're going to have more trouble than if you really turn to just embrace the change. And instead of trying to hold on to the role that you're doing now, really try to position yourself and in what you're doing and adding value. And if you're able to do that, no matter what the changes that are happening, if you're one that's able to add value, you're going to be able to kind of tackle any new change. And in a lot of ways, it probably will become more exciting.
And what's your best piece of overall business advice?
Kind of going off my last item, I think to me, the best piece of business advice I found is to find a way to improve and add value in anything you do, no matter what position you're in. When I was working in my undergrad, I was working in the business school, and I was doing a lot of administrative type tasks. And I found ways that even just something as simple as like making name tags, and I found a way for them to make that whole process take about a third of the time that they were doing just by changing the process. So it doesn't necessarily need to be something as revolutionary as some, crazy new idea or new business venture. But there are ways that you can add value to no matter what you're doing. And you can start taking those incremental steps, even in no matter what position you're in. And, it really will help you later on.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
I'd say if I could do that, I would say don't be afraid to see vulnerability as a weakness. I think I was always too afraid to show that I was, didn't have it all together, or that I was, nervous about something. And I think in looking back, I found that more often than not, when you can level and be real with people that, you are scared, or you're not sure you can finish something or do something, it's not actually seen as a sign of weakness. It actually can be very empowering and bring you closer and actually make you a lot more relatable.
And in your opinion, what's the key to happiness?
I think to me, the first thing is realizing that, it's not your responsibility to make other people happy. And that when you free yourself of that your happiness is that other people's that you can't make other people happy, and that's not inherently related to your own happiness. I find that more often than not, you can kind of almost choose to be happy if you're not being held up by holding on to someone else's happiness.
And what is the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
I think the best books I've read is Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. It's I think one of the best takeaways I got from it was just the amazing power and like of biology and how the different mechanisms within our bodies and stuff are wired to work, and how we've evolved to such a great point that just because it might be in our nature to act a certain way, it doesn't mean that, you know, we're now rational people and we can make different choices. I thought it's an incredibly, you know, powerful book in that regard.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
It's a quote by Nietzsche. To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. I think it's a really, really powerful quote in that the times where you're, you know, working towards something and towards a goal, often, you know, are set with, you know, setbacks and really hard to kind of work through. And I think oftentimes, you know, you can wish for, you know, greener pastures or wish that things were better. But then when you kind of achieve that goal, I often find that I look back and I almost actually enjoyed the process more than I did actually, you know, getting to where I was at or wanted to be. And to me, I think this quote really touches on that and gets to that, you know, that it's the process of going through the suffering and the pain is where life is really lived. And that's the part that, you know, really that's where all the flavor and excitement of life is really there. And you have to be able to come to peace with that and you know, and almost not enjoy it, but just accept it.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. The last question I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
LinkedIn would be the best way to do that.
Perfect, man. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.